Welcome to For Your Amusement, a theme park podcast that aims to exhaustively evaluate the world's most popular theme park attractions to determine if they are world class. I'm Ryan Bergara.
I'm Byron Marin.
And for this episode's featured attraction, we recharge our batteries as we reminisce on the now-defunct Ellen's Energy Adventure, formerly at Epcot in Walt Disney World, Orlando, Florida. And joining us in the land of the dinosaurs is a creator from the For the Love of Theme Parks YouTube channel. Please welcome a fellow Ryan, Ryan 2.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. I'm also very happy to sell my soul to ExxonMobil, like every talent featured in this attraction.
Very good, very
Amazing.
good. And I will say I cleared using Ryan 2 with Ryan before this. He actually would, and he definitely said this. He said, "You should call me Ryan 2." That's
I actually did.
Okay, very good. And as always, please like and subscribe to keep us alive if you're watching the video version over on youtube.com/@FYApod. Or if you're listening to the audio version, subscribe and rate the podcast 5 stars. And consider supporting us on our fourth wall, which is a different version of Patreon. You can join our fourth wall and become a park hopper, as we're calling it, by heading to fyapod.com. Not only will it help us keep this madness going, but you'll also get up to 3 monthly bonus shows in addition to the free main show you're tuning into now. And finally, fyapod.com is where our merch store is, which is, I'm in our own merch head to toe. I'm like a walking billboard right now. But that's just because it's real comfy. That's not,
Which is funny because we paid for them.
We did pay for our own merch.
Like, people usually assume like, oh yeah, you got all your own merch. Like you just like you get all the merch you want. Like, no, we still pay for it.
Writing a check to ourselves and then losing money in the process. We are here to talk about Ellen's Energy Adventure. Ryan, when I asked you what rides you wanted to cover, this was on your list. Why?
Well, I'm a diehard fan of like old Epcot, like the history of the edutainment side of things. And I know you've already covered Journey into Imagination with Figment, and that's kind of considered to some a bad ride. But what is truly, truly a bad ride, but like still has that weird, like synergistic, like sponsorship to it and a great celebrity appearance. I had to pick one that, was really fun. I don't know. I also wanted to break the record of possibly the lowest rated attraction.
Is that actually, that's official? It's the lowest rated?
No, he's talking about maybe this might get the lowest in the world class test.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
I hope not.
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. This ride is nonsensical to begin with. Even its like predecessor, what it replaced. It runs contrary to what the pavilion was supposed to be in the first place because of the sponsorship that it got. So I find this very interesting.
We need a little more positive energy on this Energy Adventure.
That's right.
I got to say, at the very least, it's a very unique ride, and we're going to explore that today.
It's a good thing. You're right, Byron. We needed more positive energy, which is why they brought in Ellen DeGeneres.
Everyone's favorite boss.
Every America's world's best boss. She has that mug on her desk. Look, Ellen's had her troubles. We're not here to discuss that. I don't. Yeah, we're here to discuss this ride and her horrible animatronic. Byron, let's just go ahead and jump into some first impressions. Actually, you know what, Ryan? Let's start with you. Ryan, what was your first impression of this ride?
So I was not aware of who Ellen was when going in.
How is that even possible?
I was 6. I don't watch daytime TV at 6.
Yeah, but you'd seen Finding Nemo, hadn't you?
I wrote this before. Before Finding Nemo came out. So
did you write it in '96 when it opened?
No, I was born in '95. So if I
shit.
did, I'm sorry.
Wow.
But no, yeah. So I was not very aware of who Ellen was, but obviously now I knew her as the host of this very boring ride at Epcot. And also it was the very first instance where I think I fell asleep on a theme park attraction.
Nice.
At the age of 6 years old, but I think I have since then on American Adventure and at least the Tiki Room once. But
everyone's fallen asleep in the Tiki Room. That's a rite of passage.
Yeah, I think so. But no, I found it really, really interesting. Obviously, there's one movement aspect of it, which was really groundbreaking, especially for a 6-year-old. But other than that, I more so fell in love with it now because of how the weirdness of it and the history side. So
yeah, I mean, it's, to be fair, when looking up and doing research on this ride, a fair amount of parents on Reddit and like reviewers had mentioned this ride is excellent for children because they can nap on it. So you joined the ranks of children snoozing on this bad boy for the 45-minute runtime in air conditioning, which is a godsend.
Excellent if you want a nap. Very bad if you have to pee.
Oh, I can imagine this would be, this would actually be more aptly named what it was originally named, which is Alan's Energy Crisis. Because if I was on this ride and I had to piss, oh boy, that would be quite the crisis for me. Also, just want to take some time really quick to shout out Ryan's channel, not my own channel. Wouldn't that be funny? Just want to take some time to shout out Ryan's channel for your amusement. So good. No, For the Love of Theme Parks. If you haven't checked it out, he's doing video essays, but he's also doing it in a way with... I haven't seen the presentation style that he's done in terms of just also presenting to camera in the park in different spots, taking you to some of the places that he's talking about. It's really good stuff.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
So go ahead and check that out if you haven't already. Of course, finish this video first. And I don't know if you clicked out right now. I'm going to look at the little algorithm, and if I see people clicked out right at this moment, I will have realized I've committed a fatal error. But Byron, what was your first impression of this ride?
I got this confirmed this morning, actually, on the way over here, that I was either 2 or 3 years old the first time I went on this. So it was actually...
This is a text from Mrs. Marin, your mom?
It was. This was from my mom. I did ride this when it was Universe of Energy, when I was about 2 or 3 years old. All I've got here is she said, "You loved it because dinosaurs." That's all I remember. You were a toddler and it was dark and a little scary, but worth it for you because anything with dinosaurs was !
That makes sense.
I probably watched Jurassic Park at a much earlier age than most kids probably watched Jurassic Park. I rode Ellen's Energy Adventure many years later. I think I was a teenager at that point. And for whatever reason, I loved it.
Wait, why did you love it?
I just, once again, it just the whole moving theater system, which I'm sure we're going to talk about later, I just thought was so interesting. I don't know if you just kind of get like, maybe as a local, it seems super like long and boring, but I think it really encapsulated that Epcot vibe, like Ryan 2 was saying, where it's like, we don't get this back at home. And I don't know, I think on subsequent rides afterwards, I kind of felt a little differently, which we could talk about, but I remember loving this ride.
No, I mean, I got on this in 2006 for the first time with my family, the first time I ever went to Walt Disney World. I was 15, I think, and I really did enjoy this ride. I think that was also because it was a torrid summer when we went. We made the mistake of going in June, rookie mistake. To Walt Disney World. And when I found out that this was a 45-minute ride, I was stoked. But also, like Ryan was saying earlier, I'm a big fan of Weird Epcot. And at the time, I didn't know the lore and history of Weird Epcot, but I could feel it. I could feel the strange, almost misplaced and mistargeted sense of edutainment that they were going for. And Ellen definitely did feel wedged into this ride, but I still very much enjoyed it. I love the dark ride portion of the ride. Byron already knows this. Listeners of this podcast already know this, but I'm a huge sucker for any kind of exterior environment recreated in a dark ride. In an interior, we're talking like your Route 66 on Radiator Springs or like the Bayou in Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, I love anything that it goes for that. Living with the Land, just down the way here, also does that as well, very, very nicely in the storm sequences. So
the other big part of it too that you got to keep in mind is that a lot of the original attractions in the Future World area, which is the front half of the park, at the time were very much rinse and repeat. Because if you're considering like Spaceship Earth, it's a slow moving dark ride, animatronics, takes you through the history of technology. You go over to Horizons, which is it's slow moving dark ride taking you through the history of also technology / communication maybe. And then World of Motion, which is where Test Track is now, was another slow moving dark ride with a bunch of animatronics taking you through the history of transportation. So having that like other aspect of it where it's like, okay, it's mostly video screens and like a little bit of dinosaurs. That's kind of fun. So it is different. It is much longer. It's at least 3 times as long as any of those attractions I just named.
But even the animatronic portion, the dark ride portion that goes into like the primeval world light,
it's a huge reveal.
7 to 8 minutes. is the runtime of that portion of the ride, which is longer than like pretty much 3 Fantasyland rides combined. So, it's still pretty a decent chunk of time. I will say, and then we'll move into history here. This ride makes me wish that I was an adult back in the time of Weird Epcot. Could you imagine drinking around the world and then just getting dumped into into Future World or the land and seeing all these crazy edutainment, slow moving rides, watching vegetables sing? It'd be incredible.
I believe there's other substances that are more adequate for the old Epcot experience.
That's true. I think I might be picking up what you're putting down.
I feel like you don't even have to do those substances to experience that.
No, I think you're right.
Talking fruit was enough. I feel like that's
fruit. Veggie fruit.
That gummy was louder than I thought it would be.
Yeah, when it comes to energy, nothing keeps mine more positive than taking care of my health. And a great way for you to do that is with ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors, choose the right one for your needs, and click to instantly book an appointment. We're talking about in-network appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers across every specialty, from mental health to dental health, eye care to skin care, and much more. Plus, ZocDoc appointments happen fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking. You can even score same-day appointments. I personally used to despise the trials and tribulations associated with finding the right doctor for my needs, especially in a packed city like LA where appointment turnarounds can stretch for several months, but no more of that thanks to ZocDoc. So stop putting off those doctor appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/FY. Find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/FY. ZocDoc.com/FY.
Anyways, Byron, let's get into some of the history. How did this happen?
All right, we're going to take this back to April 14th of 1964. This is when Ford's Magic Skyway debuts at the New York's World's Fair. Designed by WED Enterprises, this attraction took up 6 acres of space in which Ford convertibles took passengers on a slow journey back to the age of the dinosaurs.
Walt Disney's Magic Skyway takes you back through the time barrier. Each rainbow flash an eon. Back millions of years to the dawn of life on land. This is the world that was, a world that trembles under the tread of giant beasts. Here, millions of years unfold at a single glance.
Unlike Disney's 3 other World's Fair attractions, Ford's Magic Skyway would not make it back to Disneyland, or at least not in its entirety. That being said, both the ride system and the dinosaur set pieces would eventually get repurposed for future projects. And because we have already covered the People Mover on this podcast, that leaves us with the dinosaur set pieces, which were brought back to Disneyland to be featured on the Disneyland Railroad's route in 1966. Fast forward to the 1970s, and the team at Disney is hard at work conceptualizing what was to become Walt Disney World's second theme park, Epcot Center. Although a far cry from the legitimate running city of tomorrow that Walt envisioned prior to his passing in 1966, Epcot Center would inherit the spirit of Walt's idea and take inspiration from the team's experience in New York to have Epcot serve as a permanent World's Fair. Similar to the pavilions at the World's Fair, Disney would turn to corporations to fund the construction and upkeep of their Epcot pavilions and the attractions within them. One of the first concepts for a pavilion would be focused on the subject of energy, with a heavy emphasis on solar power. Epcot was all about looking forward, after all.
Clean energy, right?
Clean energy. However, this emphasis took a hard left turn once the pavilion secured its sponsor, Exxon, which you may know of today as ExxonMobil. For those unfamiliar, Exxon is an oil and gas corporation. That being said, you probably know where this is going.
Yeah, they were trying to promote clean energy, and they hired Daniel Plainsview from There Will Be Blood.
I'm an oil man.
I'm an oil man. This is my son, Walt Disney. They definitely run contrary to each other, and the ensuing kind of like rebrand after that of just like, oh, we're just gonna like talk about all kinds of energy. As opposed to like moving forward.
All energy types, and of course solar energy was included. It's just that you have to kind of focus on the sponsorship.
No.
So it wasn't like Exxon, which I do mention here. It's not like Exxon said, "Oh, don't use solar energy. Don't talk about solar energy." They're just like, "Hey, hey, this is our business here. Like, let's really dial it in on the fossil fuels."
I mean, from the outside of the building, it looked as if it was a solar energy themed ride because the entire roof of the attraction itself was just solar panels. Now, from reports I read, it was like only maybe 15% of the energy used in the attraction was based off the solar panels. So maybe just the one dinosaur was operated from the solar panels.
Just that one animatronic was ran by that.
I heard it was actually to charge the ride vehicles.
That would make sense.
Yeah, because they were battery powered. Mm-hmm. So they just put them in the little charging station and then off they go.
Very similar to a Great Movie Ride did, Tower of Terror did.
Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway now.
So, that's the modern take of it. So when it comes to ExxonMobil, they, give somewhat of a polite mandate to change the emphasis of this pavilion's main attraction to shift to fossil fuels, their history, and innovative ways to obtain them. Remember those dinosaurs introduced on Ford's Magic Skyway? Well, the Imagineers were inspired to build a new massive display of dinos for this upcoming attraction, and were very happy to use the subject of fossil fuels as the segue. Construction on this 105,000 square foot energy pavilion begins in 1979 and includes a rooftop consisting of over 2,000 solar panels. It is important to note that despite fossil fuels being the emphasis of energy within this attraction's presentation, other sources of energy such as solar were still included.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to. I mean, if you're sucking at the teat of oil, a couple drops are going to spill out and make its way into the narrative. So
I mean, yeah, and it's Epcot after all. It's like it'd be even if this is the 80s, it's still or approaching the 80s when they're making this ride. It's still like solar was still there, and like this is the future we have to cover. So
at least the sponsor they secured was at least like connected to energy whatsoever. There was actually another attraction in the same area. The old the Seas Pavilion was sponsored by United Technologies, which was like an airplane manufacturing company. Nothing to do with the seas.
Yeah.
But
then you don't have to sell your soul,
Exactly. That's part of the fun of Epcot is just selling your soul to whatever company pays the most money.
Because when you think the land, you think Nestle.
Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, Nestle is delicious. It would be funny
or Kraft.
It would be cool if energy was like sponsored by like Gatorade or some shit like that, or like Folgers.
Right next door, Spaceship Earth was sponsored by Siemens, which is an electric company. They literally like provide. They don't provide, but they manufacture like electrical panels and little breakers and stuff like that. So like that would make perfect sense and not be attached to crude oil.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I don't know how familiar. I mean, I'm sure everyone in this room and everyone listening to this podcast are nerds. So we're all kind of aware that Epcot had a hard time securing sponsors to make this thing even happen. So I think they were kind of like not in the position to be like, oh, this is kind of like incongruent with what we're trying to do here. So not to give them a way out there, but I'm just saying like it kind of makes sense that they were scrambling.
Yeah, there's positives and negatives when you're beholden to an outside source of financing.
That's fair. I'm not going to be holier than I drive a car that I have a hybrid. I do have a Prius, but it does use gas. Slightly. So.
And once again,
you don't go around preaching about like clean energy though.
No, I don't. I do not. I don't go around. That's true. You're right. That is the difference. I guess I don't make my entire career on clean, sustainable energy. I make my career on capturing and killing ghosts and getting on rides. Anyways, Byron. Yeah.
Anyways, this impressive display of solar panels would be used to help power the ride itself, as we just discussed, which was essentially a massive moving theater guided by a thin wire on the floor, a first of its kind. On October 1st of 1982, Epcot Center would officially open, and with it, the universe of energy. From the impressive pre-show that featured Czech filmmaker Emil Raduk's one-of-a-kind kinetic mosaic to the jaw-dropping moving theater ride system which took guests into a prehistoric forest, Universe of Energy's larger-than-life experience garnered tremendous praise and guest satisfaction during its inaugural years. Emphasis on inaugural years. But then came the 1990s, where Michael Eisner was in the midst of bringing more pop culture relevance to the Disney parks. It didn't help that at the time, Epcot's reputation was beginning to sour amongst the audience that Eisner was most fixated on pleasing, the teens. In addition to this, many Epcot sponsors were approaching their renewal periods, and although Exxon was willing to stay on as the pavilion sponsor, they demanded upkeep, updates, and ultimately more foot traffic. This would result in the Universe of Energy Pavilion closing for a major update on January 20th of 1996. It is important to note that the Walt Disney Company was fresh off acquiring the ABC television network, which gave Eisner and the team access to a long list of TV shows and actors to utilize in their theme parks. On September 15th of 1996, Universe of Energy would officially reopen with Ellen's Energy Adventure, but not before having a brief stint over the summer as Ellen's Energy Crisis, which was a preemptive opening that was more so motivated by other Epcot attractions closing as opposed to actually being finished. But anyways, Ellen's Energy Adventure included an entirely new storyline that followed, at the time, pop culture icons Ellen DeGeneres and Bill Nye the Science Guy. What remained the same was the ride system's functionality, extremely long runtime of roughly 45 minutes, and the overall goal of educating guests on fossil fuels and other methods of obtaining energy, and still had that Exxon sponsor after all. So speaking of that Exxon sponsorship, that would end in 2004, but unlike with many of Disney's attractions that lose their sponsorship, Disney would continue to keep Ellen's Energy Adventure running, which even included a 2009 renovation to enhance audio and paint the building back to its original 1982 color scheme of reds, oranges, and yellows. All that being said, Ellen's Energy Adventure would limp along in the years ahead, perhaps weighed down by the fading relevance of its stars, but probably more so because of its poorly aging emphasis on fossil fuels and its egregiously long experience that lacked rewritability. So on August 13th of 2017, the Universe of Energy Pavilion would finally meet its demise after nearly 35 years of providing quality edutainment, to make way for an e-ticket attraction that we are sure to cover on this podcast in the near future.
Oh man, I do love me some Cosmic Rewind. I'm not gonna lie. Have you've been on Cosmic Rewind, right, Ryan?
At least once a month I'll ride it. Just casually pop in after work.
Ride is so goddamn good. So good. A long sprawling history to it. You know, Ellen actually outlasted the original incarnation of this ride by at least once at over, least right?
I think double, yeah. I think she was there from 96 to 2017. It closed the same day or same week as the Great Movie Ride.
It was the same day as the Great Movie Ride. I didn't know if that was going to be in the fun facts or not. I had it as a R.I.P.
Great Movie Ride.
Very
pour one out for a real one.
Really funny that the only two rides to feature this moving theater type system in the original rides to kind of spearhead the trackless dark ride system both closed on the same day, which is cold-blooded.
Yeah. I mean, obviously one had a better reputation than the other. So I think more people will ride for the Great Movie Ride than Ellen's Energy Adventure. But not us. We're going to ride for Ellen's Energy Adventure right now, I think. Maybe. We'll talk about it at least. I don't know if we're going to ride for it. I don't want to go that strong. But let's move on to some fun facts here. But before we do that, let's take some time to thank our sponsors.
Although Ellen's Energy Adventure was notorious for lulling people into a midday nap, I gotta say, nothing lulls me into a better sleep than my Miracle-Made bed sheets. I shit you not. I fucking love these things. Traditional bed sheets can harbor more bacteria than a toilet seat. It can lead to acne, allergies, and stuffy noses. And, well, it's just gross. Miracle-Made offers a whole line of self-cleaning antibacterial bedding such as sheets, pillowcases, and comforters that prevent up to 99.7% of bacteria growth and require up to 3 times less laundry. Using silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long, no matter the weather. So you get a better sleep every night. Miracle sheets are also luxuriously comfortable, without the high price tag of other luxury brands, and feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. So stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. Go to trymiracle.com/FYA to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code FYA at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/FYA and use the code FYA to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/FYA to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. Now back to the show.
And we're back. All right, it's time for some fun facts. This ride was about 45 minutes long, of which 8 minutes is a pre-show. And as I mentioned before, 7 to 8 minutes of that also a dark ride. It had a capacity of 2,430 riders per hour and cost a reported $46 million for the original Universe of Energy, and then an additional $2 million to rethemed to Ellen's Energy Adventure. Apparently, the lion's share of, if not all of that $2 million was used to create that terrifying Ellen animatronic, making it one of the most expensive animatronics ever created by Disney at the time. How they actually spent that money is anybody's guess, because this animatronic is the thing of nightmares. It actually caused the ride's opening to be delayed because they couldn't get the animatronic to look like Ellen. And while it somewhat looked like Ellen eventually on the ride, the animatronic today now is owned by a collector and sits collecting dust in his house. And it looks like a nightmare robot. I don't know if you've seen this robot. Have you seen what Ellen's animatronic looks like now? She actually unveiled it on her show.
Is this real? This is me? This is not real. This is the robot they use for Ellen's Energy Adventure?
Yes, I've not actually seen it in person with my own eyes, but when scrolling through YouTube while searching Ellen's Energy Adventure, there's a couple of vloggers who actually visited the house.
Shelby has Ellen's animatronic. Look at that! Is that not the creepiest thing you've ever seen in your entire life?
The whole vlog is them going to the house to see where this Ellen animatronic skin. It's not even the full animatronic.
No.
Because I think the animatronic was scrapped and used for other attractions, which, who knows? I mean, the actual full animatronic might be one of the characters in any of the new rides that opened semi-recently. I was
maybe
hoping
it hosted the Ellen show.
I mean, that'd be one way.
It would explain a lot. I will say that the skin was the Ellen animatronic was retired in 2014, 3 years before the ride actually closed. So from what I've gathered, this thing just kind of sat and fell into disrepair with no maintenance on it. So the skin, as you mentioned, is what's remaining, and it's kind of put on some sort of mannequin, and it is the stuff of nightmares. It's really, really tough to look at.
I mean, you might need to visit that guy's house. That's all
I don't
I'm saying.
think I'm going to visit that guy's house, nor am I going to say hello to this animatronic. I will say, though, I did see another place say that the ride opening was delayed, not because of the animatronic. In fact, this place claims that the animatronic was ready to go and was already actually installed on the ride, and that the delay actually came because all the filming for the ride took so damn long that they had to delay the opening. So they had a problem on their hands. They had installed this Ellen animatronic into the Universe of Energy, but they couldn't open Ellen's Energy Adventure yet. So what they did apparently was they hid the Ellen animatronic behind like a rock, like rock set pieces. So while Universe of Energy continued to run.
Yeah, I heard they like re-edited audio and stuff like that as like temp, so it didn't have like a pre-show.
Because if you Universe of Energy closed, and 2 weeks later Ellen's Energy Adventure opened. very, very quick turnaround, which this story actually makes a little bit more sense to me, that they would have already installed the Ellen animatronic and then just hid it behind like rocks or something like that.
There's also another reason it opened in the first place. It's because at the same exact time, World of Motion was closing down to do their refurb for Test Track, which took 4 or 5 years. And also, I'm pretty sure Horizons was running seasonally at that point due to some structural issues, and they were like trying to not have as much wear and tear, and it wasn't that popular. And I mean, if you visited Walt Disney World anywhere from like 2019 until 2024, you'll know how much the future of like the center of Future World was affected by all those construction walls. Imagine what it was like when like half of the park's attractions are just down for an entire summer. So of course they had to say, okay, let's bring Universe of Energy back before Ellen is completely ready. And that, I mean, it made sense. I don't blame them for it.
Especially when half of said attractions people didn't really even want to get on to begin with. So not a lot of, not this park at the time for the general public was not exactly everyone's favorite park. I think it would have been really funny for them to just have left the Ellen installation in with no explanation. Just like run it. Like, you know, have the Ellen voiceover happen for people thinking they're getting on Universe of Energy. Because then they could be like, is this fucking ride haunted by Ellen DeGeneres? I feel like I keep hearing Ellen DeGeneres talking in the forest.
You could have had her just do a voiceover. She could have just done a voiceover where she's saying, hold on, come back later, my ride's not ready yet. And that would be fine. Then you run that during that few months when it was up before she was there. Perfect. See, there, she could have done it while she was doing the voiceovers for Finding Nemo.
Equally funny to just hide her behind a pile of rocks, though. I wish we could find a photo of this pile of rocks, because I just think it's really funny to have like this multi-billion-dollar corporation be like, how do we solve this? Why don't we just pile up a bunch of rocks and just hide this $2 million robot behind rocks? I
mean, if they did that for the last season of the Ellen Show, it might have gotten better ratings. But.
That's true. The Rock probably tested better with audiences. Not Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Rocks. Regardless, the animatronic was removed in 2014, as I mentioned, 3 years before the ride closure in 2017. The roof of the attraction is covered with 2 acres of 80,000 photovoltaic cells. Made me feel very scientific saying that. And these gather and convert solar energy to power 15% of the ride, which is also the stat that I found. The ride was originally called Ellen's Energy Crisis, but quickly changed to Adventure. The reason why this change occurred was never disclosed by Disney, but I suspect that might have something to do with their sponsor, Exxon, being as how it's kind of pro-fossil fuel, calling it a crisis.
Well, wasn't there also
maybe not the best?
Wasn't there also like a major oil spill by Exxon in like the mid 90s?
I'm sure
I heard might have contributed to.
I'm sure there's many spills. Those guys are spillers. So they're not tidy with their drink. I think it's pretty obvious why they changed it from crisis, but they did. They changed it very quickly. Exxon sponsored the pavilion from 1982 to 2004, as Byron mentioned. Hilarious. There was a scene of Ellen going back in time with Einstein to meet her parents, but this was actually cut out before the ride opened. And that is also the reason why Ellen has a light bulb in her hand at the end of the ride in the Jeopardy scene. And then when they showed the finished ride to test audiences, everyone was confused about the light bulb, so they added a little VO from like the host of the show to explain the light bulb.
Yep, here's a parting gift for you right now, Al. It's a long-lasting, low-energy light bulb. Enjoy the efficiency.
Very interesting. I would have loved to see this Einstein scene. I'm a big fan of any kind of Einstein representation. Loved him in Oppenheimer. Very funny guy coming in every now and then to just to scold Oppenheimer.
Did you find him? Did he have many jokes in Oppenheimer? I did see that. I don't recall.
I just laughed every time he was on screen because they always kind of gave him an Avengers kind of like introduction, like he was going to come in.
He's Tony Stark of Oppenheimer.
I like watching him chase Oppenheimer's hat.
Even though Tony Stark is in Oppenheimer, he is the Tony Stark of Oppenheimer.
It's pretty good. I like him. We're not here to talk about Oppenheimer. But anyways, I just wanted more Einstein in this ride. There were more remain seated reminder signs throughout this ride than any other Walt Disney World ride at the time, which makes total sense. It's a very long ride. It moves slow as hell. I'm sure people were like, get me off this at some points, or were standing up, stretching their legs, or if Byron mentioned, as Byron mentioned earlier, probably people had to use the bathroom. I'm sure there's probably threads of people out there that have had to use the bathroom in an emergency style and been trapped on this ride with a lap bar holding them down. Sounds horrifying.
I just got quite the visual of someone struggling at the end of this ride to like the jingle of Jeopardy.
Oh, yeah. Having to pee while the Jeopardy think music has you strapped down by your lap is so fucking
Is there a lap bar on this ride?
There has to be, right? I can't recall. Was there a lap bar?
I don't remember there being a lap bar, but maybe.
So the way
it would
that
make
it
sense
worked,
there wouldn't be, though, because they had remain seated signs.
They had the side doors like slide.
from what I remember, there's the pre-show room where there's a bunch of screens, and then
Yes.
you go to a second room where there's a bunch of screens, except there's these like theater seatings, but they're like grouped in groups.
Yeah,
like the
there's-
ride vehicles just looks like a set of, I think, 4 or 5
There's
rows.
six.
Yes.
There's 6 of them, and I think it's 2 rows of 4, or maybe
Yeah.
there's 6 of them, and they each carry like 97 people
They're big.
on average.
Yeah. I mean, very similar to the Great Movie Ride vehicles. But I'm trying to even think, I don't know why this is like kind of like a blind spot in my brain right now, because even Great Movie Ride, did that have laugh bars?
No, Great Movie Ride did not have lap
Did not,
bars.
right? Okay, yes.
No.
So maybe you weren't strapped down, which would then explain all the remain seated signs in this
Yeah.
ride.
The ride like would move and just stop for a little bit, and then it'd move again. So like I understand people being like, "Oh, I'm done with this," but
See you later. I'm just going to go walk into the land of the dinosaurs now and take a dump. These dinos were actually built to scale. And as Disney consulted with dino experts to do so. But they also were then repainted later when it became Ellen's Energy Adventure to be brighter, just because it was, it was a brighter adventure. It was more fun, more levity. The volcano eruption was practical. It used a hair gel-like goo that was translucent with an orange tint and was aided by aided by lighting to make it look like lava. The biggest compilation screen, and compilation screen being like the combo screens, the ones that have like, several screens smashed together. The biggest version of that in this ride is 32 feet tall and 155 feet wide.
It's a big story. From now on, we're dreaming in widescreen. Wider. Wider. I sound like a dentist, don't I? Okay, everybody, rinse and spin. Yes, kidding, not you, sir. Thank you.
On the last day of operation for this ride, the ride broke down in the primeval world scene,
Remain seated until a cast member comes to assist you. Thank you for your patience.
which allowed guests to step out and get up and close and, impersonal with all these animatronics. And Disney kind of let them walk around and kind of take it all in before eventually being like, okay, you guys got to leave. But that is pretty cool. It makes me actually wonder, did it break down? Or
if it was intentional.
Or was it intentional to be like, oh, the ride broke down. I guess you'll all have to get out of your vehicles and then be able to take pictures and stuff with everything in here. Really cool if it was an intentional breakdown. I think that's a fun little hat tip for people. Disney realizing these are folks that really enjoyed what this ride was trying to do in terms of just not so much the promotion of fossil fuels, but more so just like the promotion of what Epcot used to be, in that it was a weird edutainment kind of space. So kind of like a funeral, if you will, for a bygone era.
I mean, I heard on the last day of Splash Mountain, they also had a bunch of breakdowns, but that was completely unintentional.
Oh, I'm pretty sure
And
that was
just-
unintentional. Yeah. I don't think Disney would be like, hey, I want you guys to take pictures with all these props from Song of the South. I think that was more like, oh, our thing is getting a little run down. Because I say that because it's sure breaking down now as Tiana's quite a bit, which I still haven't been on. But Byron has.
It's still breaking down here in Florida all the time.
That's unfortunate.
And yeah, at least during the cast member previews, it was pretty stop and go, more so than Tron was. Which, by the way, I know we're talking about this. Ryan, I met you at the Tron
right,
cast
yes.
member preview.
Yes.
And we didn't really talk really, because one of my cast member friend who's a fan of yours was like, oh my god, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I heard he was also kind of a theme park guy.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's just so weird that now whatever, almost 2 years later, wow, that's crazy.
No, and that's crazy too, because in that time, that's when I discovered your videos.
Yeah.
In the time since then, and it's insane to me that if I would have just run into you a couple years later, it would have been like, oh, dude.
Yeah.
I love your videos.
No, it's fine. I mean, since that Tron preview, I've people started watching my videos more. So that would explain it. So.
Oh, makes sense. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Moving on, and these are the last couple fun facts here. As always, Disney does pay homage to rides that they've replaced. So in the queue line to Cosmic Rewind, there are several references to Universe of Energy written in Xandarian language on the columns. When translated, the words read Ellen, Alex, and E equals MC and Dino. Obviously, Ellen DeGeneres, Alex Trebek, and Einstein references there, and Dino, well, dinosaurs. This last reference, I did not know this one, and I'm going to have to rewatch some ride videos of Cosmic Rewind. Maybe you since you go on it more.
I do know this one that you're about to say about the song.
Yeah, so riders on the Cosmic Rewind coaster can hear an electric guitar cover of the original Universe of Energy's attractions theme song before the coaster's backwards launch. That's crazy to me because I only really recall the Guardians theme being played, but
it's a quick guitar lick. It's like right when the thing, like when they knock the generator out of the Celestial's hand, and it's
So it's the lift hill and like when you turn the corner is the Avengers theme or the Guardians theme. I don't know which one. And then when the Guardians ship comes into frame, it's like you could hear what they're playing inside the ship.
I see. That's really cool.
They're just listening to the theme.
That's so awesome. I did not realize that just because the Guardians theme is blaring so loud, which I do love the Guardians theme. So I guess I'm distracted by that. I'm going to have to go check that back out again. Or we could play a clip of that right now. Maybe. I don't know. Byron's looking at me like we probably can't.
From existing. What have we done? I think we're jumping back.
You probably can't.
Demonetized immediately. Let's go to the good and the bad. What are the good and the bad things about this ride? And as always, Ryan, feel free to add or subtract or argue with me on some of these, whether they're good or they're bad. First good I wrote down is, look, I think the pre-show video is pretty charming. I think the setup is fun. I think it's kind of meta.
Energy. I mean, there was a time I could care less about it. And then suddenly everything changed. One day I was sitting in my apartment. I said I was sitting in my apartment when... There it is.
Ellen's, she's on the couch saying like, oh, anytime you see somebody on a couch, a dream sequence is coming.
Now, as most of you know, when someone falls asleep watching TV, that person is going to have a what? Anyone? Anyone?
A crick in the neck?
Bad hair day.
A dream sequence.
That's right, ma'am, a dream sequence.
Then a dream sequence happens. It's clever, and it sets up the story really well. Do you guys have any thoughts on this pre-show video at all? Any feelings?
I mean, I'm a little confused that Bill Nye is her neighbor. This is another part of it that I don't think we mentioned.
That's true.
Bill Nye, the science guy, comes over to her New York apartment.
Which is massive, by the way. It's a fucking, palatial New York apartment.
It looks like the set of Friends.
It does look like the set of Friends.
Hey, it's your neighbor, Bill Nye, the science guy.
Maybe it was this. Maybe they filmed on the set of the Ellen show because there was originally a sitcom.
Yeah.
I've never seen the show, but it's possible that they were like, okay, well, it's going to be like you're watching an episode of her show. I don't know if that's where she lives in the show or what, but apparently Bill Nye is her neighbor, and he's going over to collect. It's like tinfoil and like some Q-tip. He's like doing a science project, but a science project you do if you were like a homeschooler that decide and your mom's like, oh, we got to do something fun this semester. Let's do a science project. Even though he's like, I don't even think he's a scientist. He's the science guy, or else he'd be Bill Nye the scientist. So, but he's just
shots fired.
Oh, no, I don't know.
Bill
That's
Nye
what I heard.
catching strays.
No. Listen. I've been a big fan of Bill Nye, and he should probably be the one who's mentioned in the queue of Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah. But he just comes over for some things, and that's kind of how they write him into the storyline because it doesn't make sense that it's him, or why would he also be featured when Ellen's like the main title, which I think the ride might have possibly drawn more if Bill Nye's Energy Adventure was the name of the ride, and I think it would have more long play and it'd still be open today, possibly.
Honestly, you're probably right. Yeah. Because weird. Actually, Bill Nye also featured in the Dinosaur pre-show.
Yes.
In the not the main pre-show video, but the one that's in the kind of like museum portion. Bill Nye representation large in Disney parks.
It's just a voiceover in the main like rotunda room, and also he was featured in Innoventions, which is another like Epcot walk around attraction that was in the center of Future World, and he basically does voiceovers and videos for that, as well as he did some like promotional material for Epcot, and that was all from like 1992 to 96 or 8 around there. He was just like really, really heavy in the parks at that time.
Man, I never really delved deep into the psychology of how cool it would be to have Bill Nye as your neighbor, but man, that would be pretty damn cool. Imagine you throw like a little party, Bill Nye comes over, you get to see him drink a beer. It would be kind of like that thing if you like see your teacher at a bar. It's like, because he's everyone's teacher essentially. So seeing Bill Nye drink a beer, I don't know why that would kind of like soothe my soul, just to know that he's like a normal dude. But
he's still wearing the bow tie.
But he's still wearing the lab coat and the bow tie.
You're just trying to chat about sports, and he just won't shut up about tectonic plates.
Or he's just like, dude, the fucking Giants, bro.
He's just completely different.
Just a complete bro. I feel like he'd be telling me like cool fun facts in the hallway. Like I'd run past him and he'd be like, K is potassium on the elemental chart, and I'd be like, thanks, Bill. See you later. And just jiggle my keys into my door.
I will say, in Disney's defense, this ride should have worked, because like in the 90s, when you're going to school, all the kids were so hyped about like them wheeling in the TV and them playing Bill Nye.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was obsessed with that.
But that was also because you were at school, and that meant that you get to watch something instead of being at school. Whereas if you're in a theme park, I'm not really interested as a kid in being like, okay, now let's learn. I want to get on like a roller coaster or something like that.
I'm going to be honest with you, Ryan. I used to watch the VHS tapes at home of Bill Nye.
I did too, but I'm saying when you're at a theme park, you'd be hard pressed to find any kid to be like, hey, do you want to get on Cosmic Rewind, or do you want to sit and hear about fossil fuel for 35 minutes?
No, but the rides at the time were, Guardians wasn't there. Test Track wasn't there for part of it. It was, I guess Test Track would be more of a draw.
Yes.
And then also, whatever, they had Body Wars there too, which was like a Star Tours type ride that was right
Body
next
Wars,
door.
you're talking about the actual Body Wars and not the thing that Mission Space does to your body, right?
Not me, not my Body Wars that I
Mission Space is Body Wars. They should rename that ride Body Wars, because
that's what it has to be.
That ride is a lot, which we covered on this podcast, and you could get all you want to know about that by watching that, and you could hear all the horror stories that have come from that ride. Moving on, next good I wrote, good to see Alex Trebek.
And now, here is the host of Jeopardy, Alex Trebek. Thank you, Johnny Gilbert.
Rest in peace, Alex Trebek. Also great to see Jamie Lee Curtis, who, this is the weirdest part about this ride to me. You have Ellen DeGeneres playing Ellen DeGeneres. You have Bill Nye playing Bill Nye. And then you have arguably the most famous person of that trio playing Stupid Judy, which is Ellen DeGeneres' like high school nemesis, who she lamented was smarter than her, so she calls her Stupid Judy.
It's my old college roommate, Judy Peterson. She was such a smarty pants know-it-all. I had the best nickname for her, though.
What was that?
Stupid Judy.
Ellen, that makes no sense. She has a PhD.
I know, but it made me feel better.
Which is funny, because the first time I did Ellen's Energy Adventure, I like thought of her as the antagonist, and when I revisit it, I'm like, Judy's doing absolutely nothing wrong.
I know. Ellen is just like created this narrative that like Judy sucks because she was smart, and then like gets us into that mindset, and then we all are like, yeah, dunk on Judy, fuck Judy. And then she really didn't do anything wrong. I mean, she is being kind of pompous when she's answering all the questions, like looking at camera and stuff like that. But I do think it's funny that in a ride featuring cameos of famous people playing themselves, the most famous person in the actual ride video itself is playing a character. I think that's pretty fun.
That was probably just like a half day's work.
I guess maybe back in the time, Jamie Lee Curtis not as famous as Ellen DeGeneres, but I would say
she hadn't done Freaky Friday yet, but she clearly had a relationship with Disney. I mean,
she had already battled our guy Michael Myers, so I don't know.
I know you mentioned it's a very famous celebrity not playing themselves. There is one more of those in this attraction.
There is. You're right. You're right. He might make an appearance in the bad.
Yeah, we'll save that for the bad.
I do like, and I've never actually seen a ride do this, because, pre-show videos, they have people, it's just to get to fill up the room and to make sure the next portion of the ride is actually ready for loading. That's the primary purpose of these videos, and also to acquaint you with the safety information, as Patrick Warburton would say. But this is the only ride I've actually seen do this thing where at the end of the pre-show video, in like 20 seconds, they'll be like, hey, I know a lot of you just walked in right now and you were late, but here's everything you need to know before you get on this ride. And they like give you 3 bullet points of like what you need to know to get on this ride.
And those of you who are just walking in right now, you're late. Where have you been? Anyway, so you're not completely lost. Here's a recap of what has been going on. I'm Ellen. Hi. I love Jeopardy. I used to not care about energy at all until I had a nightmare that I was on Jeopardy and all the categories were about energy. Oh, don't I know it's scary. So my neighbor, Bill Nye, stepped in to help me out. Bill Nye, the science guy. You know him? Anyway, so he comes in to help me out. That's what's going on. Got it? Good. If you don't, then that's your problem because you're late. And you think about that next time.
I kind of appreciate that.
I like the self-awareness too.
Yeah, because like I have been on a ride before for the first time where I missed the pre-show video, and then like I kind of get on the ride and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So I do appreciate the quick little wrap up.
It makes perfect sense, and also I feel like now the pre-shows, how they open these new rides, like if you're talking about Rise of Resistance or Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, you're loaded into a room and they're just gonna be like, no, you're gonna be here. If you're not in this room, you're not, like, there's no late stragglers anymore on a lot of these.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
So I feel like that was intentionally written in, and also one last second plug, I'm sure, to have Exxon, mention whatever they want to mention in those 3 bullet points before people go in, so it doesn't seem as propaganda based as like setting up the story to like then make the sales pitch on the ride of solar energy, wind power, bad, very bad.
That's a good point that most rides do shut off. Like even Tower of Terror, like they close the doors. Even the ride that replaced this ride, Cosmic Rewind, has a pretty intricate pre-show room where if you tried to walk into that late, you would get crushed to death.
Correct.
By the doors in that like little teleportation chamber, which would be very tragic. Anyways, I like that this is a remnant of weird Epcot. We talked about that already. No need to delve into that further. Multiple screens, pretty neat. I do like the teachings of the prophet Bill Nye. Big fan of Billy Nye. I love his work. So the transition from the screen to the actual dark ride, still pretty damn good and pretty neat, I have to say. You had alluded to it earlier, Ryan, where you said like, that transition, still impressive. I think it's impressive.
Especially when you're looking at 2 sets of 2 separate screens and then expecting to have more of that. Cause I think it's the rule of 3 in storytelling where like, you have the one thing, the other thing, and then the third should be different, but also kind of alluding back to it, because there were scenes in the prehistoric era where you see Bill Nye and Ellen there.
Here we are, 220 million years in the Earth's past, give or take a day.
Bill?
And then you actually go there, which should have had to pay off. If it didn't have the payoff, this ride would have been open for about 2 months.
For sure.
So it had to have that big scene, and it's a big reveal. This was obviously the highlight for everyone who rode this.
Hey, what's over there?
Yeah, no one goes on this unless that's there.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, absolutely not. I definitely wouldn't be. Which leads us to our next good. Dinos. Gotta love them. Gotta love the animatronics. I also love how enormous this showroom is. Like the first dino room that you go into after this reveal is massive. Like it has gotta be one of the biggest rooms I've ever seen on a Disney ride. And I mean, a testament to that is how big Cosmic Rewind is. Like knowing how vast this room is, seeing Ellen's Energy Adventure, it is crazy just to see something that sprawling. It's like the antithesis to Dinosaur over Animal Kingdom, which is the tightest, most narrow nook and crannies, can't see what the fuck's in front of you ride. Whereas this ride is like, here's an entire just prehistoric forest. And it's amazing.
It's got a good soundscape too.
It does.
When you enter.
Beautiful purple sunset kind of like in the background with the brontosauruses in front of it.
Speaking on Dinosaur, do you guys think that this was like the popularity of this attraction was affected by Dinosaur opening at the other park?
Ooh, that's a good question.
No, because I think this is kind of like the gateway for kids to enjoy Dinosaur, because any kid who goes on Dinosaur is probably going to pass away from fright. This ride you could get on, and it's fun for the whole family. You don't have to worry about a giant dinosaur walking out from a bush trying to eat you. So
maybe it brought the guard down for people who went to Epcot before they went to Animal Kingdom on their vacations, though. I feel like that was probably.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to see more of these dinos.
Oh wow, they do Dinosaurs great here. Make it fun for the whole family, just like the Ellen's Energy Adventure. Let's get on. What is this called? Dinosaur? I bet you this is even better. And then their kids are just crying the rest of the day. I couldn't even imagine. We covered that ride on this podcast, but just being a kid, getting on that, an unsuspecting family, so unfair. It's so unfair. I couldn't even imagine.
We've seen the movie. It's lovely.
It would scar me for life.
Plenty of people shitting their pants on that one.
Oh, for sure.
Gonna miss it.
That's right. Soon to be the defunct dinosaur ride. Also, I like that the T-Rex and Stegosaurus fight from Primeval World is essentially recreated here in this ride. It's not the exact same skins, and the dinosaurs certainly aren't as terrifying as the ones in Primeval World, but it's basically the same exact thing, even down to like how they're posed. I was curious, Byron, in your research in the history, did they just... was that more like an homage, or just more like...
It's more of an homage. They didn't bring that over from the World's Fair.
No.
They took those to Disneyland, but these were, I think, created from scratch.
Interesting. I wonder if like maybe even just like...
But the inspiration definitely came from the Ford Magic Skyway and the diorama.
Well, the eyes of the T-Rex in Primeval World in Disneyland are glowing like orange orbs.
Oh, they're great.
Terrifying. But in this ride, not so much. So they kind of made it overall less scary of an experience. Got a couple more goods here. The soundscape and the music. I love the music in this ride. It kind of sounds like the music that plays when you play Crash Bandicoot. It's a deep cut, but I love that video game so much. So like this music sounds very similar to it. I enjoy it. And I do like the educational Ford aspect of it. And that does it for my goods. Is there anything else about this ride that you guys like?
Everybody online was saying air conditioning is the good. That's the main sales point onto getting on this ride, and was the air conditioning because of the hot summers down in Florida. So you cannot talk about this ride without mentioning the air conditioning and just the fact that it exists and it's a spot to sit for 45 minutes and just cool down.
Yeah.
It is strange, though, that one of the selling points to spending a lot of money and going on this Disney World vacation and getting on this high-tech ride is like, oh, it has air conditioning, the thing that you have at your house, and you could sit in a chair for 45 minutes. The thing you do for free?
I will say the scale of it, very impressive.
It's an impressive scale.
It really felt larger than life, especially the first time I experienced it. And not knowing that it was going to be like a moving theater.
Yeah.
I don't know. I get nostalgic just thinking about it.
That's fair.
And also, I guess for its time, and this has been so oversaturated in the theme park industry, but those 100-foot screens, like back when we were kids watching, that seemed like a very rare, impressive thing. Where obviously that hasn't aged as well now that so many attractions rely on screens. But it was cool for its time.
Moving on to the bad. Look, I'm not going to rip this ride apart, but there are some bads here. Let's just start with it. Michael Richards, aka Kramer, aka the caveman in Ellen's Energy Adventure, who's basically just Kramer as a caveman.
I think it's a hilarious moment especially if you're a fan of the show. But outside of that, it's obviously now it's changed. There's a little bit of a different thoughts around that specific person.
Yeah, this is a ride with an alleged dictator, and then also somebody who said some of the most racist shit ever on camera.
It was a great add to the ride until 2006.
That's correct.
Or whatever year. I think it was around 2006.
Kind of funny, though, that he would say, Michael Richards would say all the stuff that he said, and then in this ride, he portrays literally a caveman. So there is some poetic justice in that. But I'm sure Disney saw that clip go viral and was just like,
bring in the
Guardians. You got to get this shit out. Get him out of there. Yeah, it's easy to cut out though, kind of, I guess.
If you were to see a modern day Ellen's Energy Adventure hosted by somebody else other than
question.
Ellen, who do you think would fit that role? Like, obviously, I feel like you'd straight go to like daytime talk show hosts like Kelly Clarkson, or I don't know who else is hosting daytime talk shows, Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
But technically at the time, Ellen was like on a sitcom and she was known for stand-up work on, late night shows and stuff. So like who could you possibly see in this role?
I have a couple names already off the top of my head.
Okay.
Number one, you've already mentioned. Bill Nye would be an incredible host for this just as a standalone. I think that's already kind of a layup. Number two, Jeff Goldblum. I think he'd be very fun in this role. He has the zany energy, and he sure does a good job selling apartments for apartments.com. And then number three, I think this is maybe kind of reaching across the aisle for Disney, as it's not their IP, but because he's already known in the zeitgeist as a scientist, not like a real one, but like portrays one. Christopher Lloyd would be very interesting for me. The guy who plays Doc Brown.
Yeah.
Just to get back at Universal for getting rid of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, hey, he was featured at a SeaWorld. He had a movie that was like called The Lighthouse, which was a 3D movie.
Oh my gosh, what a throwback.
Famously, Christopher Lloyd will say yes to a lot. So
I remember I did that as a kid, that Lighthouse.
And also, what's her name? Marty's mom was in that too. It was like their first
Leah Thompson.
Leah Thompson, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think he would be down for it though. I feel like for me, if you're looking at the history of this, and like ABC had a show that was the Ellen Show, and it was just a sitcom at the time. If you're looking at current sitcoms that are running right now, it's like The Connors or Abbott Elementary. Maybe you get the guy who was Tyler James Wilson.
Yeah.
And that would be good, but I don't think you could stick that name.
Quinta would be interesting. Quinta, friend of the pod. She would be good.
I feel like, but the thing is like, if you're looking at like the name value of like a household name like Ellen at the time, or like Bill Nye or whatever like that, I think there's like a level of that if you're going to stick the name on there rather than just Energy Adventure Ride starring or featuring. Like Ellen is the key part of this title.
Well, I know Jeff Goldblum had his own Disney Plus show, so I feel like Jeff Goldblum has name value that I would certainly be interested in a 30-minute edutainment zany adventure with Jeff Goldblum. I know sometimes he could be a lot in a strong dosage, but I think in that sense, I think he'd be very fun.
Just 40 minutes.
I can't keep up with who's canceled or not, but is Neil deGrasse Tyson still good?
I think I'm not really sure, honestly.
He's okay on YouTube Shorts. I don't know how he is elsewhere. At least on my feed.
He did the show Cosmos. This is a weird one. This is strictly YouTube, so I don't think it's as much like huge celebrity, although he has a lot of followers. That Mark Roblar. Have that guy's videos? He does those science.
Yeah,
I feel like he'd be a fun host.
I have one last one here, and it's very zany, but I think it would be a home run. And that they've already, and I'll give you a hint. This person already hosts a Disney attraction.
Which park?
Hollywood Studios and California Adventure.
Oh, geez. I don't even know.
It's not Patrick.
Is it Rise of the Resistance? Admiral Akbar.
It's a trap. They're going to talk about fossil fuels.
I'm going to get, no, it can't be an MPH.
He'd be good too, though.
Dang it.
I don't know. It's just the Star Wars rides that are both, right?
Well, California Adventure, though.
It's kind of an unfair question because it's not even just one host. It's multiple.
Oh.
And they aren't human.
I have no idea. How am I not thinking this? I'm sure there's listeners who are like screaming right now at the TV.
I can say it right now. The Muppets Energy Adventure.
The Muppets are no longer a California Adventure, but...
They would used to be.
That would be pretty fun. I do.
The Muppets Energy Adventure would be a blast.
Anyway, you have the two old guys cracking jokes about fossil fuels because they're obviously really old.
It'd be fantastic. Anyways, moving on to the bads here. First bad, obviously, lots of screens. Anybody who watches this podcast, listens to this podcast knows I don't enjoy the screens. There's a whole lot of them.
Which, by the way, this is a good for the original universe of Energy, but a bad for Ellen's Energy Adventure. Yeah. The original version had essentially like 100 like tiles that were like prism shaped that would rotate and like give it this weird 3D look. You could find it online. There's good footage of it. And it like now that you see just the standard like split screen like panorama like with Ellen popping up around, such a downgrade. I think it was hard to upkeep because it was like a very innovative feature.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, like the fact that that thing opened in 1982, or
pretty impressive,
with that 100-tile mosaic moving screen was.
It makes it clear that the money was there. Like that's the thing, is that like there was clear money backing it, and it was probably to like differentiate that from other Circle Vision-esque type films that were running at Epcot at the time in China and over in Canada. They have 2 like Circle Vision films at that park, and like the wraparound screen. If you have something different like that, especially for the pre-show, it's a little bit of flair that you could have that isn't just the same thing over and over again.
Because I just rewatched the video and I'm still like looking, like, how the fuck did they do that? Like I can't. It's insane.
Next bad I wrote here. I don't know why I wrote this. I must have been grumpy when I wrote this because I actually think this should be a good. I just wrote, I don't think brontosauruses shoot steam out of their head. Apparently, this is supposed to be a sneeze. There's a portion in the ride where the brontosaurus has like steam shoot out of its nostrils, or its like head essentially. And I guess I was like, not on my watch, but I actually think that's pretty good. That should be a good. I think it's funny that a brontosaurus sneezes. I don't know why I wrote that as a bad. Next bad I wrote is widescreen reveal. That's later in the ride. It's kind of treated as this like big moment when we've already seen a big widescreen to begin with. So it's kind of just like, all right, I don't really understand that. And the obvious, the through line here. It is extremely strange to be kind of just like really gassing up fossil fuels for a majority of this ride. And also strange that like there is the portion obviously where they talk about alternative sources of energy like solar and wind, and then they go right back to like, but
solar electricity still isn't that cheap, but it's getting there.
Well, then why don't we just get a bunch of wind farmers to harvest a big old crop of wind?
We're starting to, where it's windy. But remember, to power a whole city, you need a whole lot of windmills.
And when the wind stops blowing, we'd be left in the dark, wouldn't we?
Right now, these renewables provide about 10% of the world's energy. But we can expect them to be playing an even bigger role in the decades ahead.
That's great, Bill, but we still need a heck of a lot more energy. Where's it coming from? And do you have a curling iron?
Come on, I'll show you.
We primarily use oil, and we've pretty much used most of the oil. So let's go to the places that are hard to get oil. And then how do we do those? And then you tour.
Here we are at the ocean.
You tour an offshore drilling platform.
Oh, hey, don't give up. We can reach the oil with offshore drilling platforms like this.
And it's extremely odd and uncomfortable. There's really no getting around that. It's weird.
I know that the world was in a different place in 1996, but I don't think it was that different. I mean, Al Gore did not go on his, media tour for the documentary at that point. No. There wasn't like global warming wasn't what it is now, but it is mentioned in the ride. Like Ellen asks about what about global warming, and Bill Nye's exact quote is, "It's a hot topic with a lot of questions," and then moves on.
What about global warming?
It's a hot topic with lots of questions, but it's one of the big reasons scientists are working on ways to burn fuels like coal more efficiently than ever.
This self-proclaimed educator in science just is like, okay, well, how much are you going to pay me? Okay, yeah, we could brush over that. It's fine.
No, Bill Nye's like, by the time this check clears, everyone will be dead, in like 50, 70 years. The thing, too, that's really funny is, speaking of Al Gore, I bet you he's the reason why they have all those "Please remain seated" signs. Al Gore, if he got on this ride, would have an aneurysm. He'd be like trying to rush the screen and fight Ellen DeGeneres.
He'd like get the rest of the audience. Everybody stand up and unite.
Yeah, everyone get off this ride and start beating the shit out of these dinosaurs. My next bad I wrote was, I kind of talked about this earlier, but I really wanted to hear Einstein talk in this ride. He never talks.
He just kind of smokes that pipe that doesn't smoke. That doesn't have smoke.
That's right. And at the end, he kind of walks off screen when he gets his little light bulb. And I'm just like, hey, man, let him talk.
What language? Did he also speak English? Or was like, he spoke English and German, correct? If I'm correct in saying that about Einstein.
Way, subtitle his ass. I don't know. He's a smart guy. Let him talk.
But how is he going to do on Jeopardy if they are not using his most prominent language?
Apparently poorly, because he had $0.
Yeah, I just like maybe he didn't understand the concept of a game show. Obviously, life is not a game for him.
Well, in Ellen's dream.
That's true. It is in Ellen's dream. In Ellen's dreams, Einstein's a dumbass and she's a genius.
Yes.
That's actually what happens in the dream. And then the last bad I wrote here, and this could have been a good for some, the Ellen animatronic, depending on how you feel about it. I think it's good, and for what it's done for the culture right now, probably exists as one of the scariest animatronics out there, which I find very funny. So it could be a good for me. But if we're talking about just the design of the animatronic itself and the maintenance, it's pretty horrifying. They spent $2 million on this thing.
$2 million on this animatronic. There's no way that all the money went into that.
That's what the research tends to indicate, that a lion's share of the $2 million went to making this animatronic, making it one of the most expensive animatronics in Disney history at the time.
But if you compare it to another ride that opened a few years before, the Great Movie Ride, it's comparable to the Wicked Witch animatronic that's featured on there.
Yeah, that's a good animatronic.
But that's also so much better, and you don't hear about that being the most expensive animatronic at the time. And it was maybe like a copy of that, and she was holding a broom or a stick or whatever she's holding in this scene. It's a scary scene. I get it, but or at least the animatronic is scary. As long as I'm pretty sure there was also the rule on the ride that you couldn't look in her eyes. Just like if you're a PA on her show, you could not make eye contact.
That's why that dinosaur is like the dinosaur is actually running from Ellen in this ride. That's the fun fact there. I have to say that look, I don't understand where the money went into that. I saw the animatronic. It doesn't look like it's doing anything crazy in terms of movement. Maybe some of it went into likeness fees for Ellen, and that's like looped into the animatronic cost. I don't know.
And it's a full production. If you look at all the video, most of the ride is video, and they had to film everything completely brand new with a multicam setup because it's not cutting away multicam, but it's like there's 4 cameras pointing at the scene or 3 cameras pointing at the scene, and you have to have the right thing set up. And you have to pay the talent. Obviously, they have some pretty big names that are featured on here, so I understand that But I personally, I think $2 million is not that bad for the amount of money put into this for that retheme in '96.
Well, I think a lot of the shooting, like the actual like cut scenes, like with Jamie Lee Curtis and Alex Trebek, that's all like Disney synergy in terms of like Disney owned properties. So I would imagine there wasn't too much money spent in terms of like using that talent. Obviously, you have to pay like the crew and stuff like that to film this stuff. But I still think a majority of it went to making this very sophisticated animatronic that sits in a dude's guest room now, which is the funniest place for that to land. I can't think of any place funnier for that to land. That guy's a hero. Anyways, that's my last bad. Anything else that we want to talk about in this ride before we move on to the world-class tests here?
It's a pretty mid-range ride. I don't know.
Pretty mid.
Listen, if I've been drinking a lot of water during this recording, it's because of how dry this attraction is.
It's a very dry attraction.
I have very, very fond memories of this attraction, but I gotta say, when I revisited the POV this week, after not riding it for probably over like 10 years at this point, I gotta say, I'm like, man, this is slow. Like, this is really, really dry. And
yeah. I have to say,
I don't know if it was just better when I was there, but yeah, it's a bit of a drag. I'm gonna be honest.
I had a bit of an opposite effect when I revisited it this week for this podcast. I was kind of like, you know what? Weird fun ride. It's a weird fun ride. There's a whole lot of problems with it, but I found myself enjoying the experience, which is weird. I don't know why. Okay, moving on to the world-class tests. Well, before we do that, let's once again thank our sponsors. And we're back. All right, this is a rubric of 10 tests painstakingly devised by Byron and myself to determine if an attraction is world-class. To receive the highly coveted world-class pass, the attraction must pass 7 out of 10 tests. A score of 6 out of 10 leaves the attraction up for debate for world-class pass standing, and anything lower than 6 out of 10 is an automatic fail. I am very curious how this ride is going to fare in these world-class tests. From my recollection, the lowest score we've ever given on a ride was 3? Was it 3?
Yeah, I believe it's 3.
If it's not 3, it's 4.
It was Fast and Furious Supercharged.
Oh, okay, never mind. I mean, historically defunct attractions on the show do worse, just because like they're closed, so obviously they weren't good enough to stay at the parks. And I'm just hoping and praying. I think it's possible, but I won't try to intentionally send it that way.
That's fair. That's fair. This is actually funny because most of the time a guest will pick a ride to try and come and defend its honor in this and try and push its score higher. You're doing the opposite.
Yeah, this surprised me.
You're just trying to tank the score.
To give a little bit of behind the scenes, when asked about what I wanted to cover, it was like what are your favorite rides? And I'm like, okay, yeah, but like a lot of my favorite rides are either already covered or like I don't have enough to say because it's just like, yeah, it's super solid. Like that's it. And there's not a lot of history on it. But this one had so much to talk about. So I was like, this has to be one of the options. And I think it's a solid one, but it's also not the best.
It's certainly one of the funniest ones to talk about. And with that, let's get into it. Test number 1, the average tourist test. Would the average tourist have a hard time getting on this ride? Is there a long wait? Is there a complicated queue system?
Well, they'd have a very hard time right now because they can't. No. But
back in the day,
back when it was operational, pretty damn easy.
Yeah.
Hell, they'll even give you the bullet point notes if you come in late.
That's right. That's how much they knew people were kind of thinking of this ride as an afterthought.
There's like, please just get in here. We don't care if you're late.
Yeah, please come on our ride that has the highest capacity.
I think the main question for this is, how often did it run? Was there like always 2 shows kind of going or 3 where they would like move on and the other ride vehicles would move to the next room as the other one's coming in? Because there's a chance that during down times, it ran once every 40 minutes. So I guess then you would have a wait. You'd have, it'd be a little bit difficult. But I think for the most part, there was at least 2 going. So every 20 minutes, you'd be leaving the pre-show.
This would be a people eater for a ride that's not eating a lot of people.
Yes.
So I would imagine this is the definition of the easiest ride to get on. So this is going to be a pretty easy pass. Perhaps one of the only ones we could say that for Ellen's Energy Adventure.
Hey,
1 for 1.
Positive energy. Let's go.
Test number 2. And I'm starting to see where this is going to start trending. The Leslie Stahl test. Would you be willing to wait 60 minutes for this attraction if you've already been on it at least once? Or if everything in the park was 60, would this be one of the rides that you wait for?
If it suddenly appeared out of nowhere one day and I could ride it again, yes. But other than that, absolutely not. I don't think anybody would wait more than 5 minutes to enter the pre-show room for this ride.
No way. You telling me you would wait 60 for a ride that's already 4? You're going to dedicate essentially 2 hours to Ellen? That's crazy,
Look,
dude.
the wait time to ride ratio, really good. But
really
the problem is, I feel like some people are waiting nearly 60 minutes to get off.
That's true.
So
you could argue it's the reverse wait. You're waiting the 60 to get off the ride. Yeah, I think this is a pretty clear fail.
It would be a fail for me.
Yeah, okay. Well, look. Fails across the board. Hey, it's still at 50%. 1 for 2. That's a fail. Moving to test number 3, the smartphone test. Does the queue of this ride have enough to keep you off of your phone?
There's not much of a queue. That's the thing.
The queue is essentially the waiting room.
Yes.
Right? Is the pre-show where you're essentially getting an episode of Ellen.
Yes.
So does it count to say, yes, it'll keep you off your phone?
That's a good point because you're basically looking at the screen, but like we already mentioned, they realized there was enough people showing up late to this that they made a quick Cliff Notes version at the end. So
there was never any backup in the line itself. I don't think. I believe they didn't have an external queue that would be like switchbacks if it were to be backed up on a busy day. It's just there was no line to this at all. You just turn the corner, enter, and you'd be there.
Yeah, the ride itself honestly kind of starts with the queue. Like this is kind of like the pre-show room is no different, honestly, than the presentation that you get in the middle of the ride, essentially. Like the same kind of multi-screen. So the only difference being you're sitting down when you're watching the other one on the ride, and then this one you're standing, which is honestly just as kind of annoying. You have to stand for this 8-minute pre-show.
Yeah,
I'm gonna actually say this is a fail because there's really not a queue here.
I'm going to pass it. That is the queue. It's just disguised as a pre-show. I mean, like you're never waiting outside for queue. I will add a positive is they did have a little timer that showed when the next show started.
Yeah.
So if you didn't want to like sit around for like 20 minutes or whatever waiting for this, you could just clearly look at that thing and be, all right, I'll come back later.
Or a timer to be like, hey, you have this much time to cut your losses. You have this much time to get out of here to turn around.
But I honestly think that is the queue. You spend the 8 minutes watching that pre-show.
I see.
And that's it. Then you walk on.
I think what's tipping it over the edge for me, because I would normally agree with you, if there was a room where there was a pre-show video, like let's say, this is obviously a bad example because this is an excellent version of this, but like the Ray room in Rise of the Resistance, that to me is more clearly a cue room where you're watching something, because the experience you're seeing there is unlike anything you're seeing on the ride. You're looking at a projection of Rey. It's different. Or even the Admiral Akbar like transportation room in when you go into Batuu. That is different than anything that you get on the ride. What they show you in this pre-show room is essentially the same exact kind of presentation and scene style that you see on the ride. So you can make a strong argument. You're on the ride.
Can you fault a ride for not having a queue?
Yeah, because it doesn't.
Nobody goes to theme parks to wait in the lines. That's the thing. If they don't have it, that keeps you off of your phone. It's hard to say, but I would probably have to pass this.
Oh my God. Okay, to me, this is falling in people mover territory because
no, because people mover you actually do have to wait in those switchbacks.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Fine. You know what? Fine. I'm overruled here. But this is a pass. This is gonna get one more point. Here we go. 2 for 3. That's a pass. Test number 4, the Tony Stark test. How innovative is this attraction? Does it push theme park tech forward?
Absolutely. It absolutely does. It's the first.
Wait, what?
It's the first trackless system ever created.
It's kind of insane that they still use the same style technology on rides now.
This is the same ride system that they adopted for Great Movie Ride, which they turned into Tower of Terror. It all started here. And on top of it, it was all on a rotating. It was on a turntable too. When it's sitting in front of the screens, it's running on a turntable, and then the theater moves into.
No, you're right.
It's a disguise. It's disguised as a theater, and they did the reverse of that for Mickey and Minnie, where it's disguised as a train, and then it breaks apart into the ride vehicles. But this is the first trackless system that Disney ever did.
It is the same ride system as Rise of the Resistance. Is that insane? Like, this is like it's got the wire that's buried underneath the concrete.
The only difference is the new trackless systems, they go off the Wi-Fi beacons, where this was just like an 1/8 inch thick wire. But still, it was inspired from this. Like, it's definitely taken theme park tech forward, almost more so than nearly every ride we have covered.
That's so weird.
That's unfortunate.
Why is it unfortunate? It's the truth.
The cold, objective nature of this test is turning on me right now. Well, I guess that's a pass. That's a pass, and that is improbably. We are now writing at 3 for 4 for Ellen's Energy Adventure.
That's right.
Test number 5, the Hollywood test. Oh my God. Can this attraction be adapted for the silver screen? Does it have a comprehensible story?
It does. Okay, listen. Hear me out.
No. Oh no.
I know that there's a lot of guests who come on here, and it's the hear me out. And I did not intend on doing this, but hear me out. It has the star power. It for sure has the star power. Maybe maybe the story is not the exact story of the ride, but talk about like a prequel to this in movie form, going back to high school with Ellen and Judy, or was her name Judy? Stupid Judy?
Stupid Judy.
Yeah.
We have a little buddy comedy that's happening, and obviously they have a falling out at the beginning of this prequel because then we wouldn't have a story for the ride, but it would make, and then Neighbors with Bill Nye the Science Guy. That is a perfect setup. This is a Happy Madison film written all over it.
No, this actually does have a very comprehensible story, and it essentially is adapted into a film because it's 40 minutes long. So, oh my God. I honestly, in the spirit of the test, can't fail this.
You can't. It's a pass.
No, you can't.
Holy shit. Right.
Does Ellen's Energy Adventure just have like just the niftiest way to get around this rubric?
4 for 5. That's a pass.
I'm glad that there's this actual structure to this, because otherwise I think we all would have been like, oh yeah, that's probably going to be like a 2 out of 10.
We made the test for it to be objective for this very reason, and it's turning on us. This is test number 6, the Simpson test. Aha! How likely is this to be replaced with something new? Well, this is an automatic fail for this ride, because it did. And look, I've had folks mention that when we cover defunct attractions, we should get rid of this. Because it's not fair to that ride. My counterpoint is something that Ryan actually said earlier. Ryan had said that obviously it wasn't a good enough attraction to remain, so that should be counted against it in world-class pass standing. I think that is kind of fair.
Yeah, I guess. I don't.
He's like, I don't know if I want to be the poster for that. I don't want to be the face of that.
No,
I think it's very fair to dock a ride for.
I feel like if Disney did not have the expectation at D23 to announce big stuff, that would affect Guardians from even being there. You know what I mean? And not that obviously that's for the super fans, that's for whatever, but I feel like with Epcot needing that refurb and needing that refresh, they had to put something there. They also had to put something at pavilions kind of nearby there. And that was one of the major things. And it's the only... Also, the part of it is if Guardians was not successful, I think it would still be there. If the movie franchise of Guardians of the Galaxy was not there, and like there's the whole rule that I'm sure you guys have covered at least at some point on your podcast of a lot of Marvel characters not being allowed to be featured in Orlando parks because of
East of the Mississippi rule.
Yeah.
Yes. So because of that, if Guardians of the Galaxy was featured in the Marvel island over at Islands of Adventure at Universal, it wouldn't have been here. I don't think there would have been a replacement. I don't know what else would have gone here.
Let me say this though, just to talk to this point, one like as in its totality, the idea that a defunct attraction should not have this test ran through it. I think the idea, okay, let's think of the greatest defunct attraction of all time. Just like we don't have to name one, but just like as a thought exercise, like, is there actually a defunct attraction in existence that would be a true 10 out of 10 ride? I don't think there is.
Yes, there is.
What is it?
Jaws.
Oh, no, come on, man. No.
Yes.
I don't think so. And also, it's not fully defunct yet. Isn't it still in Japan?
I've ridden in Japan.
Okay,
There's rumors that they're going to get rid of it, but I still think it's there.
Yeah,
it's still there.
So, I don't know. I just feel like I do think there's a reason why rides eventually leave.
Well, here's the other thing is, and once again,
that's why we made the test.
I don't know if this is like lip service or like they're trying to deny things, but supposedly Disney was developing a roller coaster to take place of Ellen's Energy Adventure that was going to focus on the Big Bang long before Guardians became the IP they decided to put on it.
That makes sense.
What other IP would it have been though? Like
I feel like been the Big Bang.
I think it would have stayed on the energy topic, I believe, and it would have just been about educating about the Big Bang.
I mean, even the launch sequence of Cosmic Rewind, you could just say replace that running from Galactus with that's the Big Bang. You get launched through the creation of the world. It's very similar.
Oh, you know what? There was also rumors that they were going to explore the idea of like time travel and stuff like that too.
It makes sense. And they found an IP that suited it.
Well, I mean, everything at Disney parks now has to have an IP attached to it. So I feel like they probably had a short list of what it would be. Maybe it would have been Star Wars in the parks at that point. I mean, maybe it should have been something else. But I feel like, especially, the Big Bang thing makes a lot of sense rather than keeping the boring Ellen ride.
All that to say,
and I've also heard that they waited for the success of Mission Breakout to pull the trigger on Cosmic Rewind.
All that to say, this is a long way of saying this is a fail for the Simpson test. That's 4 out of 6.
It was a fail. It got replaced.
It did get replaced. Okay, moving on to test number 7, the signature moment test. Can this ride hold its own without its signature moment? Is it a one-trick pony? Obviously, the signature moment is the reveal of the dinosaur world, and we had already said without that, this ride is toast.
That really makes the ride.
It's just a movie without it.
What you're telling me, their big reveal is not Bill Nye denying global warming?
No, that is a big reveal.
It is a big reveal.
Yeah, this is a downright snooze fest if you don't have the dinosaurs.
No, and some would argue it's still a snooze fest with the dinosaurs. Mm-hmm. Case in point being
and
both of you snoozing on it.
Specifically that reveal of it too, like that. The first time you notice, I'm moving into the scene. Yeah. Like you eliminate that, you're out of.
No, this is a fail. 4 for 7. And that brings us to the last 3 tests. So let's quickly thank our sponsors, and then we'll come back and find out the fate of Ellen's Energy Adventure. And we're back. It's time for the final 3 tests. Ellen sits at 4 for 7. Let's move to test number 8, the premature detraculation test. Does this ride finish too soon? No, wait a second. Oh, this is...
It's impossible. With the longest ride in Disney parks history, it is impossible for this to finish too soon.
It doesn't finish soon enough.
I'm not gonna lie. I used
That's
to
not the
love this
question.
ride for how long it was. I thought that was so freaking crazy. Where
That's
I'm like,
true.
this thing's over half an hour.
That is
It's
true.
45 minutes. That was a big draw for me back
It was
then.
for me
and
as
even though
well,
it's-
too. Honestly, I was like, well, I could wait nothing and then get on a really long ride and say I have that much ride time.
Yeah. So in that respect, it's a pass for me.
Oh my God.
You might need to rehaul the system after this one. I think a simple sentence of like, does it end too soon or too late? Like adding that to it might help, but I don't know.
We have 2 more tests after this, and just not even thinking about it too deeply, I have a feeling that I don't know if it's going to go too well for those 2 tests.
No, that's true.
It might have this ride might have finally ran out of bullets.
Dude, this ride is an agent of chaos. It's like Ant-Man shrinking to the size of getting in between the armor of Tony Stark. This is a lot.
But like as I mentioned at the top of the show, it's a very, very unique attraction.
That's a pass, folks. That's 5 for 8. Moving on to test number 9, the exit hall test. Here we go. Do you see people be physically excited getting off of this ride? Do they have that bounce in their step in the exit hall?
Yeah, it's like, oh, finally.
No, Ryan.
Finally.
No, Ryan.
Listen. Almost every single ride through you find on YouTube of this ride, if you see people excited, it's all from the very last ride through. Every single person that filmed on this ride, not every person, but a majority of the playthroughs on YouTube, if that's the only thing you have at your disposal to see, everyone is so excited getting off this ride because they have a walk off of the ride. I know I'm skirting the system right here, but
No way.
listen, I'm in fight or flight mode now. I've fully been converted. I need to make this happen.
He's a double agent.
No, there's no way. I've seen people. I mean, this is true. The times I've been on this ride, and it's not many because like I don't go to Walt Disney World that often because we're from the West Coast, so it's only a handful of times I've been on this ride. Of which one time I recall this ride ending and someone having like an adult having to be woken up to get off the ride. If that's not an indicator of what this ride does to people, I don't know what else is. Someone literally had to be woken up, a human adult had to be told, hey, please get off our ride. You are asleep.
Go over the wording of this question again. One more time. Say it one more time.
Do you see people be physically excited getting off of this ride? Do they have that bounce in their step? No!
They're excited to get off this ride.
The last day of operation doesn't count. As a matter of fact, the POV that I just watched was not on the last day of operation.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, it was just dead silent. Everyone got off the ride. It was just dead silent.
These guests are excited to get off of the ride. That is the question that is posed. They're excited to get off.
So normally when you get off, like you see a ride POV, it's kind of hard to hear the ride operator say like, all right, thanks for getting on Ellen's. And every time you see a ride through this video.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for visiting Universe of Energy. Please gather all your personal belongings and exit through the open doors behind you.
Crystal clear audio of that ride operator going, all right, thanks for getting off Ellen's, and they're just doing their bullshit. They sound like they're falling asleep themselves.
We might, maybe one day we'll amend this where it's like, how re-rideable is it? Like, because in terms of this ride, I don't see anyone being like, let's run it back.
That's true. We could change that test. But either way, this is a fail. 5 for 9, which means it is now only able to get into debate land. Test number 10, the fine wine test. Has this attraction aged well? Has your opinion of the attraction appreciated or depreciated since your first experience? Or if it's a new ride, do you believe it will age well? No, this ride has not aged well. It started strong, introduced some new tech, but over time that tech quickly became outdated. It relies on screens in the sense of actual old screens, not even how screens are utilized today. And its overall message has obviously aged extremely poorly. It's aged like oil. It's not good. So this is a pretty surefire fail for me, Byron.
Yeah, I can't even.
Yeah, there's no way, right?
There was a time in my life where it felt like it was appreciating.
Yes.
And then it just kind of took a nosedive. Just like when I really think about it, and just like from an operational standpoint, and just, the messages.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Is presenting it. You can't say it's aged well.
This ride has aged so poorly that the titular main character animatronic was removed from the ride 3 years before it closed and now resides in a dude's house. So that's and then you could see how poorly that aged.
There are pieces from the ride that have like aged really well. like I love the idea of like a moving theater system and stuff. Like I would love to see that taken to a new level, but like the whole experience as a whole.
No.
That makes sense. The whole experience as a whole.
Yes.
But that doesn't it has not appreciated.
So that's a fail for you. Ryan,
it's
what
a
do you
fail
got?
for me.
Even with when the sponsor left, that's the thing that a lot of discussion has been had on this attraction online, is that when the sponsor left in like, I think either 2004 or 2006.
Yeah, it's 2004.
It maintained the same story. So just
it really did, didn't it?
Disney was just completely like, yeah, oil's great. Yeah, like let's like it's there was no reasoning behind it. You know, it would be like if Test Track was still running minus the Chevrolet sponsorship, but they were just suddenly like, oh, Chevy's the best. But they're not paying them to say that. There's like that's the unique part about this attraction is when the sponsor was removed, it didn't change anything other than their name being on the front of it. They didn't update the videos. They obviously couldn't at that point.
No.
Ellen was completely different at the time and all the other characters different. And like, so it's like, what do you do at that point? And you just leave it up as it is. So even before, way before it closed, over 10 years before it closed, it aged like cheese. Like cheese
like
is
milk.
good. People like milk. There you go.
Yeah, it's I mean, hey, they painted the outside of the building in 2009.
Back to what it originally was.
That was pretty neat. Other than that, no, this ride aged as poorly as it can. And I'm going to have to say that's a fail, which means this ends with a score of 5 out of 10, which frankly, I'm a little surprised by. I thought it was going to be much lower than that, but I guess that's why you run attractions through the cold, unflinching nature of an objective rubric like the world-class tests. 5 out of 10. Any reactions for that?
I mean,
I think that's very fair. I think that's a fair score.
Interesting. Ryan?
It's a lot more than I expected. And I think it's a lot more than any of us expected, for sure.
I think it gained a lot of points for its innovation and its uniqueness, but ultimately the rubric wins.
The smartphone test, I don't know. That could have been a fail for me. I mean, hey, look at me. It was a fail for me. It's a fail for me.
Hey, you know what? We want to take this to court?
We could take it to world-class kangaroo court over on FYA Pod. We could do that.
Anyone feel as it needs to fail more than it already did?
We'll have it out in court. I will see my day in court. Either way, that does it for this episode. Thank you so much, Ryan, for joining us. This has been a blast. Thank you for bringing this attraction to our attention. And do you have anything that you would like to plug?
Just for the love of theme parks on all social media, Twitter. It's not Twitter. I'm not on Twitter. Instagram, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of those. Just follow me there for Love Theme Parks. Just doing fun videos all the time. So yeah, history and like weird comedy stuff. So.
No, he like as I mentioned up top, does great stuff over there. Highly recommend you give him a subscribe and check him out because it's really good stuff over there. And also recently he sacrificed his body by staying in one of the grossest hotels I've ever seen. In he that video is crazy. At the time of recording, it's his most recent video.
Where is this?
It's by Disney World. It was what, $15 a night or something like that.
$17 a night. I will say,
I'm in.
It's my the past few months, my views had been dwindling. I was like, I got to do something.
Yeah,
and I was like, I sneaked some history in it because the hotel itself, I won't name drop it here. I'm sure you'll have to go click on the video to find out. But it has some really interesting history connected to the Give Kids the World Village, as well as maybe possibly the old Nickelodeon hotel. It's kind of a little bit involved with that too, and it's gross. Lots of mystery stains and brown liquids and some jacuzzis and massive holes big enough for 2 bodies to fit through and walls. And, yeah.
It's pretty good. Either way, let's wrap this out. That does it for this episode of For Your Amusement. If you're watching, make sure to like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. Or if you're listening, please rate the podcast 5 stars and subscribe as well. And consider supporting us by joining our fourth wall and becoming a park hopper, as we're calling it, by heading to fyapod.com, as mentioned up top. It'll help us keep this madness going, but you'll also get up to 3 monthly bonus shows in addition to the free main show you just watched and listened to. And you also find our merch there as well. And thank you to those who are already park hoppers. Here are 10 names of e-ticketers we'd like to thank: Kylo Jen, Aaron Lesher, Obi-Wan Jabroni, Dan the Annual Passhole, Monica Giangrosso, Zombie Clone, Grant Gammon, Jordana Lunda, Abstract_Sarah, David, and Rachel H. Thank you to all of you folks who are supporting us. And follow the pod socials at FYA Pod everywhere. I'm at Ryan Bergara everywhere, except Twitter, where I'm at Ryan S. Bergara, because there's another at Ryan Bergara who I've yet to murder. And Byron is at Byron A. Marin across all socials. Thank you for spending your time with us. Enjoy the rest of your day.
And I'd also like to give a nice shout out to our sponsor for this episode, ExxonMobil.
Oh, Jesus Christ. See you guys all on the next ride. Unbelievable.